All right, everybody, we are in part 2 of NPC controlling, and I wanted to talk about the NPC definition file that we can make to make different characters. So here we have Siren, and of course we have Jones and all the other ones, and she will act the same if we come up to John Wick. If you haven't seen the first tutorial, check out the video just before this one. It talks about everything that's going on in this game. And she acts exactly the same. As you see, she stopped and then she goes. If we come over here during the cinematic, hopefully we'll see her. And there she is, right? So that's good. That's what we want. We want her to look different, but act the same. So let's figure out how to do that. And of course, some of the little gotchas and stuff like that when it comes to using the NPC character definition file. All right, so we're inside UEFN now, and I thought I would talk about how I can make this NPC spawner device become a different character. In case you don't know how to do this, this is really handy. We're going to use what is called an NPC character definition file. You can see I've got it set up here as female character, and that is inside my NPC folder. We've got Jones, and then we've got Siren. The way that you make these is simple. You just right-click, go up to Artificial Intelligence, hit NPC Character Definition, and it will ask you to put in a file name. So let's put in Aura NPC. Call it anything you want, and then we'll open this up. And when we open this up, we can see that we've got some settings that we can change. Now, the NPC Character Definition is really useful. The first thing, obviously, is we can change the cosmetic modifier. So inside of this cosmetic modifier, we have Jones, but we can put in anybody that they have put in here for characters. So if we grab Aura, we can put that in, save it to UEFN, and we'll grab this NPC character here, move this out of the way. And then over in the details panel, we can just select our Aura NPC, and you can see now this is Aura. So that's how you can change the cosmetic to one of the Fortnite characters. In a future tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to do custom characters, but all of the Fortnite characters, and I mean, there are a ton of them in here. I think there's over 200 of these in here. I mean, almost every character that I think that they have is in here. So that's really handy. So you can set up every single NPC to be different if you want. The thing about this is there's a lot of settings to change. So the first thing that we can look at is the NPC character type, which is custom right now, because I have made a custom player. We can also set it up to be a guard. When you do this, the cosmetic will change to this alien. If you've already changed it, you just have to go back in here and change it back to Aura. I don't know why they do that by default, but that's just the way it is. So that's a guard. We can do custom, which then changes it again. We're going to change it this time. Participant, which I think is just simply an NPC that sort of lives in the game. You can't really do anything with these guys. And then wildlife, but there's only 4 in here. You would use this one if you're going to make an animal in the game and you want to change the skin of it. There's the boar, the chicken, and the raptor, and the wolf. We're just concentrating on actual characters. So if we use a guard, the guard will have some modifiers in here that is going to allow it to start wandering around and doing things naturally, but it's going to be a guard. So oddly enough, they talk a little bit. If they come across a player that is an enemy or something like that, then they'll try to shoot them and stuff like that. We got a lot of options there, but let's just stay in custom for now. So inside of custom, we've got the cosmetic. Let's change it once again back to Aura. And then we've also got the team modifier. Now, the team modifier can be an index, it can be the wildlife and creatures, or just neutral. If you want to have an immediate sort of enemy to fight in your game, just put it to wildlife and creatures. It works really well, really quickly, and you don't have to worry about which team they're on. Of course, you can put them on a particular team if you have, say, a red versus blue or something like that, and you don't think there's going to be enough players. You can actually use bots to sort of fill the game. So that's kind of useful to be able to set the index of the team. The health modifier is exactly what it says. Health and shield is something you can set inside of here by default. Keep in mind that you can also control this via verse, and you could also control it through devices and other means as well. So it's just like a player, you can control their health quite easily. Now, the coolest thing is we can have a lot of other things in here that we can add. So if we just hit this plus sign here for the modifiers, then we can put in the effects modifier, a movement modifier, a navigation modifier, a sequencer modifier, or a UI modifier. The UI modifier is where we can show the health above their head, and we can show a name. So if you want to give them an actual name, this is where you could do it. And then where you want to show this player. Should they be on the mini map? Should they have an arrow above their head? And should we show the nameplate to allies? Never, hostiles, or always. So that's really useful. The UI modifiers, very handy if you have bots all over your map and you want to be able to find them, because sometimes they sort of hide away and stay still and you can't find them. So that's really useful. Let's hit the plus again, and we're going to grab the effects modifier. And in here, we can set a death and a spawn effect. So you can put those in here. There are VFX sound and visuals effects inside here if you want to customize that based on when they are eliminated or when they spawn. All right, let's do the movement modifier next. And in the movement modifier, we can change the speed at which they walk, run, accelerate, and decelerate. Now, this can be pretty useful if you want to make a player that's a little bit faster or even slower. And you're going to probably use this setting if you have a character that you bring in that you retarget. We're not going to use it here because we just want everybody to be the same. That's where you would make those changes. And then the navigation modifier, this one has an override generation radii, which means that if you check this, you can change the generation radius and the generation removal radius and always generate navigation. So the navigation of the NPC is really important and is not necessarily a bit of a black box, but it can be. But for the most part, we're just figuring out how much navigation they're going to be looking around for and if it should generate it. Because the NPCs have to figure out where they can walk around and what they collide in and what they go up and what they go down and stuff like that. So this could be useful if you needed to have a limitation. And then finally, there's the sequence modifier. The sequence modifier is interesting because it is simply a way to identify this NPC to a sequence device. So if you needed to control them in a sequencer, this is where you would set the ID up for this very particular NPC or even a collection of NPCs, because you can apply this character definition to multiple NPCs. Okay, so with this custom NPC, we can actually set up a particular behavior that is going to apply across all of the NPC devices that we set with this character definition. So we can put verse behavior in here, and this is where it gets really powerful in my mind. We can put in our custom crowd NPC behavior that we created in the last tutorial, and it will apply to all of the NPCs that get set with this character definition. Now, the only problem is our code actually relies on triggers to trigger things that are inside here, and we can't actually set anything in here. So if your verse file, and this is sort of a gotcha I want to mention, if your verse file has dependencies like this, editables that you need to be able to set, you can't set devices in here. So this will have no effect. You actually have to set them straight inside of the NPC itself, which of course we've already done in the details panel. The other thing is if you do set a verse behavior in here and it's set to a particular behavior, it can get completely overridden down here in the details panel. So if you wanted a bunch of NPCs that did a default set of actions, you could set up an NPC behavior that didn't rely on any editables. And then if you had a few that you wanted to sort of change up, you would then go to each one of those and put in their behavior inside of here, because this is where we can set our editables up. So that actually concludes this tutorial covering the character definition file. I wanted to do this really quickly so I had something to reference when we do the next tutorial, which is going to be a little bit more in depth on how to retarget and make your own NPCs. But the character definition file is really important because you need to be able to set very particular things like movement and their cosmetics and maybe their health and stuff like that from default. And you can't do that inside of the details panel for the NPC spawner device. So hopefully that's a little bit useful. Nice bite-sized tutorial for everybody. And I will see you guys in the next one.